Thank you. Yeah. I know, I'm pretty sure Claudia is in Costa Rica. Emily is in Canada, Vancouver Island. Catherine is in the UK. Hi, Catherine. So nice to see people from all over join us here today. All right, let me introduce myself. Oh, Cassie in London. Nice to see you, Cassie. My name is, some of you, quite a few of you already know me, but those of you who don't, my name is Vienda. I am the founder and director of the Mentor Training, which is an extension of working as a mentor myself for the past decade. This whole journey kind of began when I completed my psychology degree 15 years ago. And then really I went on a mission seeking out more holistic ways to serve people and to take care of our mental health, because I felt that the systems we had available to us back then weren't really serving us. They were disregarding so much of community, so much of individuality. I went on and studied NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, Reiki, a huge range of other spiritual and emotional and trauma-informed modalities that allowed me to eventually put together my own system for the work that I wanted to share in the world. And in the end, it's all really quite simple. Everyone, all of us, we all have wounds, everyone has conditioning. And those of us who are willing to take responsibility for those parts of ourselves, because, well, doing so creates incredible positive change in not just our own lives, but with a ripple effect in the lives of all of those around us who need to be seen. We need to be seen and heard and witnessed and supported on our paths. So my business started out almost 10 years ago as a blog, and then has evolved into more of a women's personal growth brand where I taught and mentored both groups and private clients, and now has branched out into the mentor training. I ran the mentor training for the first time last year and saw how much this sort of training and learning container was needed in the world. And it started to take on its own entity as a business that was bigger than something I felt like I could hold myself. So I brought in someone to help me. Please let me briefly introduce you to Anna, who's been handling all things logistics and taking care of emails and students, making sure everyone's got all the information that they need. Anna, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Hi, everyone. So my background is in marketing and PR, and I spent 10 years in the corporate space. So climbing that corporate ladder and just not necessarily overly enjoying it, but learning a lot along the way in that space. And so tonight I'm more here to talk as well, like different ways that you can get paid as a mentor. That's the theme for the evening, and I'll bring in my little insights from having worked as an employee inside the corporate space for as long as Vienda has created her own brand and company. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so something before I begin, something that I find really helpful is if and when you have questions, to put them in the chat box as they come up, because then I can be really, I can respond to you in a very real way, and we can have an open discussion rather than just me serving up the content that I have for you. So if anything comes up, please just type it in. I'm really happy to explore these topics with you. And it also helps me teach I really love engagement. It's like one of the best ways for me to share as much knowledge as possible. So anything comes up, just pop it in and I will keep an eye on it as we go. So we're going to cover a few things today. One is what you actually do as a mentor. Another is how to become a mentor in your field of interest. The 3 different ways to get paid get paid as a mentor, choosing what's right for you, marketing yourself as a mentor in these 3 different fields, navigating the fear of being seen when promoting yourself, choosing what you're mentoring in and who you're mentoring and how much you should be getting paid. So what you actually do as a mentor, in a modern context, a mentor is someone with experience, knowledge, and connections who can help advance someone's, let's say, psychological situation, quality of life, career, and more often than not, all 3, if not more. The terms mentoring and coaching often get used interchangeably, which can be really confusing. And while they're similar in their support of someone's development, the roles involve quite different disciplines in practice. The best mentors shape their mentees into future leaders in their field. So it's not about do as I do, but how can I elevate you to rise to your own personal heights? How can I use my experience and my insight to take you, or for you to go on the path that you need to go on, which is going to be something unique and precious and its own thing, essentially. So what we do as mentors is we teach our clients how to turn inward, developing self-knowledge and self-trust that respects and honors the client's unique experience. We help our clients establish desires, aims, goals, and intentions using your unique skills in your field as frameworks to map out their path and their life. We combine our understandings of life and career and spirituality and physical and emotional wellness and personal and professional style and much more to guide them towards what they need most. And we give recommendations on them supporting themselves in a range of holistic ways by sharing perhaps handouts or rituals or readings or practices or meditations and so much more, whatever falls under the area that you're mentoring in. We also value rites of passage that every human being moves through at various junctures of their lives and offer them support in moving through the challenges that these present. A really important thing of mentoring is that as mentors, we are intuition, body, and mind led. So all 3 together at once. And that means we are allowing the innate intelligence of nature to inform our approach within a structured, psychology-based framework of compassion, trauma-aware space holding, and nervous system regulation. And we facilitate this remembrance of the inner wisdom that each of us holds, and that as a collective, we've lost the ability to trust ourselves and how much we already know. And so it's kind of like guiding our clients back to themselves. And with that, we believe in and affirm our clients' experience, encourage their self-trust and a sense of safety in themselves and in their body. And we really value imagination, visualization, creativity, play, pleasure, rest, and fun as powerful tools for transformation. And deep listening as one of the most important mentoring skills of all. Plus, we know when to refer on. We never take on something that we're not expertly and confidently qualified in. And we pass clients on to those who can hold space for some of those stickier challenges that we're just not able to or available for. So how to become a mentor in your field of interest? Before I speak to how to become a mentor in your field of interest, I want to speak to who can become a mentor? The short answer is anyone. There is no regulatory authority for mentoring, nor is there for the coaching profession, which means that you can literally, not that we do this anymore, but you can literally print yourself a business card with the title mentor on it and mentor away. However, apart from a questionable ethical code of conduct, because of the lack of authoritative regulation, mentoring with someone who lacks fundamental training and experience will likely be frustrating at best and harmful at worst. Becoming an effective mentor requires a number of personal qualities and training and supervision and experience. And, appropriate qualities that include things like openness, approachability, curiosity, and empathy, as well as integrity, self-awareness, and the willingness to be honest and have really hard conversations. Sometimes as a mentor, it's not about pleasing your client, but telling your client what they really need to hear. And you have to have a level of self-awareness, courage, and also the ability to stay really centered in those situations and not feel reactive and not make it about you and not project your own stuff onto it because you've been triggered. And those are all big human personal development skills that that actually every single human needs to learn, but especially if you're working with other people in a supportive role, it's something that you need. So there are basically two major pathways to becoming a mentor, each with its own educational requirements and resulting qualifications. The traditional route is through pursuing a graduate psychology degree. That's like, you can become a mentoring psychologist, essentially. So you can get a psychology degree, and through this pathway that's actually been established more recently and is not yet really offered completely widely across all universities, you can become a mentor through psychology or through having a psychology degree, which is often a longer and generally more expensive option because it's obtained through graduate education, like a master's of psychology. And that's the route I personally took, because back when I started, this career option wasn't actually available. It's something that's really come about in the last 10, maybe 15 years. And then the route that we know more recently that's more available to us is through something like a mentor training, where you can attain the relevant knowledge and competencies involved in mentoring. Obviously, the better quality training options include practice hours, as well as mentoring and integration in the course or in the training, which is what the mentor training has. We also are trying to get accredited by a governing body called IICT that governs standards in alternative and holistic education modalities. And in the end, what we offer is a professional mentor certification, which includes 80 plus hours of training, including 20 hours of practical mentoring experience. And so I'm going to hand it over to Anna. There's three different ways that you can mentor.
So when we think about getting paid as a mentor, it's not just getting paid, it's getting well paid, properly paid. And there's three main axes or avenues that you can explore to be paid as a mentor. So the first one is as an employee within your organization. So if you're in a role where you're employed, you can add the mentoring skills that you learn to your role to help you become a better leader. It adds value to the business that you work for, because as a leader, as a team leader, you then become able to identify what's behind the presenting issue that your team member come to you with. And you'll know how to get to the real issue that's behind it. And you'll be equipped to know how to better support them in that actual deep, real issue. By doing that, you add value to the business because you participate in employee retention, and you do that by being able to notice when and how to support your team. So by adding value to the business that you work for, you're not just helping them, but you're helping yourself, because you're becoming more indispensable as an employee. So you're adding value to your role as well. And that puts you in a better position to get a position or get a promotion, or just simply keep your position during restructures and things like that. So that is one way. You can also get paid as a mentor if you're a contractor to a business or organization. So you might be a consultant in your, field of expertise, or you contract to a business. And usually when you're a consultant or a contractor in a business, you come in, you do your job, and then you leave. And adding mentoring to your contract and to your consultation contract means that you'll know how to teach your skills to the permanent team that's always there. And that actually allows the business to best implement the project in the long run. And so this adds value to what you bring. It's not just the direct skills and knowledge that you're bringing as part of your consultancy or your contract. It's the impact that you're then able to make in the long term, because you're mentoring those teams to keep it going. So that's actually quite a big thing when you're contracting to businesses, because a lot of the time what happens is that a business will contract someone in, a consultant, for example, and they'll write, the strategy of how to move forward or what to do, or they'll be in to just work on a mission, and then they'll leave. And for a little while in the business, it keeps on going. But a lot of the times those projects then start to it's like they just dissipate, because no one knows how to keep the ball rolling without that consultant being there. And so by mentoring, you're adding that extra step that ensures, or at least gives better possibility for the longevity of the project that you're being contracted to work on. And as it works, the more value you bring to the business, the more you can charge the business. That's how it works. And then the third way is as an entrepreneur, and in which case you are promoting your mentoring skills to individuals or to groups, or doing courses as a mentor. So this is if you're already an entrepreneur, you can add mentoring skills to the services that you offer. Or this can become your way into entrepreneurship. So there's like those two little different things. But when you think of adding mentoring to the services that you offer, you can either actually directly mentor people in how to practice your skill. So for example, if you're a baker or photographer, a website designer, or a creative in some sort, or have a very specific skill, you can mentor people so they know how to practice that skill that you have. Or you can also mentor people in the presenting issue that your skill set speaks to. So for example, refining your style can be the presenting issue to confidence. Painting can be someone who wants to learn how to paint. Underlying that can be coming back to their creative child self, which can be really healing. So you see how there is so many different ways for you to be paid as a mentor. And even when you choose that as an entrepreneur, for example, there's different ways that you can bring your mentoring skills to life and bring that to people. And by doing that, it allows you to add an extra income stream and strengthen your business model. You're adding like an extra leg to your stool. So if one thing kind of wobbles or falls off, you still have a solid base to stand on. And you can be doing just one of those three. So either mentoring within a business as an employee, mentoring as a contractor, or mentoring as an entrepreneur, or you can have a combo of the three. For example, if you're an employee, part-time or full-time, and you slowly want to get into entrepreneurship, mentoring can be your way into that. You can, and I mean, life is fluid and ebbs and flows, so you can apply what you're learning as your life shifts along, as your employment or work takes different forms.
Thank you. And so how do you choose which pathway is right for you? This is something where you really need to know yourself. And I recommend not taking giant leaps. So if you, for example, have been working in the corporate world and you want to become an entrepreneur, to really think about, like, how can I apply all of the knowledge and all of the wisdom that I have to take steps in that direction? Or can I take everything that I already have and create a new role in this company and in this space that could allow me to offer these services? But really know who you are, what you need, and how you can be met there in terms of what you're wanting to give in the world. And so, you know, what feels right. And it's not just about getting caught up in the shininess of something new, but really being honest with yourself about how you can best serve with the gifts and talents and wisdom and insights that you have. And along with that, you know, what feels good, what excites you, and allowing yourself to be fluid with that. As Anna was saying, you know, maybe you start off in a company and then you start taking on private clients, or you're already working privately and then you offer yourself to be contracted by organizations. And there's a myriad of like blends that you can sort of play with. But most importantly is recognizing who you are, what your needs are, and how you can allow the next steps to evolve from where you're at right now. Which kind of takes us to marketing yourself in that space. Once you've figured out who you are and how you can mentor and what area you want to mentor in, you have to decide who your audience is. And so if you're an entrepreneur, it could either be private clients, or it could be organizations, or it could be both. If you already work in a company, or you want to be a mentor in a company, then your client is the company as the organization. You have to speak to, I assume, HR. Anna, is that right? Yeah. And you have to find ways to position yourself in front of them and communicate what you have to offer. I have basically only ever been an entrepreneur, so I only have the entrepreneur model that I know really, really well. So I'm going to share that, and then I'm going to hand it over to Anna so she can give us more insights in the corporate world. So in the entrepreneurial world, my business has always been online from the beginning. So that meant that online content marketing has been the way that I got in front of my audiences and communicated my message. And so the invitational content, so the content that I would share to the audiences, is what I support, what I mentor in, and why people can work with me. And then the mentoring sessions are where I teach them the how part of what my skills and what my expertise is. So when you're in front of your audience, once you figured out who they are, and you're inviting them to your mentoring offer, what you want to be telling them is the definitions and the overall roadmap roadmap to what your topic or message is, as well as why, the reasons, the underlying common problems, and how your approach and strategies can help them. Plus, what works really, really well is telling micro stories of your experiences and philosophies and how they apply to your life and to other people's lives and solve problems. Your paid work, so your actual mentoring work, then offers people the how to navigate these areas that you specialize in, that you have experience in, that you're interested in offering and sharing. And Anna, so what are the other ways that people would get in front of the audiences if they were in the corporate world, for example?
Yeah, so if you're planning on becoming a mentor and you want to market yourself to your employer, what's important to start off with is, just like you identify your ideal client as an entrepreneur, when you're talking to your employer, it's identifying who the right person within your business is to have that conversation with. So this could be your direct manager, it could be your top manager, the one that you've got access to, or it can be someone in the HR team. And before you have a conversation with them, really plan it ahead of time. So know what value you're suggesting that you can bring to the team if mentoring becomes an official part of your role. So if you've already started mentoring as part of your role with your team, bring examples of situations where you've really helped your team and how that then impacts results, because they're more comfortable in their job and so they're more productive and there's results. It's, at the end of the day, businesses, that's how they function. So it is something to really think about. And then also when you're planning, it's like how you would like to structure this addition to your role. So would you like to be a mentor and have structured one-to-ones with your team where you send feedback to HR and the leadership team? Or is it that you want to build team building workshops and bring your mentoring skills that way, where you actually kind of host a team building day and you really help with that energy within your team? And when I say your team, it might be your direct team that you're working on, but maybe you want to create these team building activities and workshops for other teams within the business, depending on how big the business that you're working for is. Or maybe you could start working a little bit with the HR or the internal marketing team and write some weekly tips for everyone to feel better in their jobs, or some mindfulness tips if that's something that you do. That's something that I did years ago, was I would send it to our HR every week, some mindfulness tips for everyone. And then that would be sent internally to everyone in the business. So that was a way of, mentoring within my role. And what I found, so planning is really important. And what I've found is interesting as well is to ask straight up what results they would need to see for you to use your mentoring and leadership skills to negotiate a pay rise, a title change when that time comes. So setting that as a goal, saying, okay, well, in 6 months or a year when my review comes around, where I'm going is I would like a title change, a pay increase that comes with that, because I'm bringing these mentoring and these leadership skills to my team. What do you need to see as my HR or my leadership team for that to become possible? And then you can start working towards that. And if you're applying for jobs outside of your company or your current job, prepare to share your added value during your interviews. So even put that on your CV, that once you've completed the mentor training, that you're a certified mentor, and bring that into the conversation, straight up. Unfortunately, at least my experience is that a lot of the times when we're trying to get a new job and a job increase, it happens outside of the company that we're currently working for. So whether you're going for an increase in your job or just changing your job or going for another job, always bring that really like straightforward saying, unlike another candidate, this is what I also bring, and this is the added value that mentoring brings, that I bring with mentoring in my job. And so that's if you're an employee within a business. And if you're contracting and you've got businesses as clients, same thing as when you're applying for jobs, you bring up your mentoring skills straight away when you're negotiating the contract, when you're sending your pitch over, or when you're sending possible ideas, you list that in there, giving maybe examples of how mentoring really helps to ensure the continuation of whatever project that you're consulting on. And show that you're there to mentor the permanent teams who are there, so they're better equipped to keep that project going. You can explain to the business that you're going to be working with that you can better help the teams, because unlike someone else who isn't trained in mentoring in the way that you would be when completing the mentor training, you'll be able to discern any doubts that they're not sharing with you. And when they say they understand and they know, you'll be able to see behind that and really ask those questions to go deeper and make sure that everybody has a really good understanding of what the project means and how to keep it going. And also, you'll know how to motivate those permanent teams and really empower them to feel confident to continue that project. So those are the two ways that you market yourself to an employer or a business that you'll be contracting for.
Thank you, Anna. I think something that we all come up against is, as heart-centered mentors and healers and creatives, we often feel fear of being seen in our work because it's not considered as tangible as, let's say, being a doctor or being a lawyer. It's so much more emotionally based. It's so much more subtle in its effects and efforts. And sadly, we live in a society and in a culture that it's getting a lot better, but is not fully embraced the humanness of our needs. And this fear often hinders our ability to show up and put ourselves out there and share our work and make an impact, which is the whole point. So what's the fear of being seen? Of all the fears that can plague people who want to work as mentors, the fear of being seen or as being visible is the most dangerous, because it can stop you from showing up and growing in this field of work. Many times when you're gripped by this fear, what you're really afraid of is not being liked, being rejected, or being seen as a failure. And this fear doesn't necessarily stop you from being a mentor, but it can stop you from sharing your message, which can then obviously hinder your ability to connect with the right clients or right businesses, get in front of the right people, and get known for what you do. It can also then limit your impact, because while you do wonderful, amazing work, if you can't share it, no one will know to hire you. So what that fear can look and sound like, it could be things like feeling like you come off salesy or inauthentic, or worrying that you don't look or sound good enough, getting into a cycle of self-doubt and questioning that leads to sort of analysis paralysis. I think we've all experienced this feeling of like not being able to move forward because we've definitely overthought the situation, and wondering if you're good enough to talk about your topic or to show up in a particular space. Plus, and women do this especially, we assume or we minimize our experience and how much we can bring to the table, and because of that don't fully show up and don't show up effectively. a good thing about being a mentor is that you literally can self-mentor yourself through the fear of being seen by addressing what's coming up for you. And these are all tools that we teach in the mentor training. And also, we teach you how to stretch and grow into becoming confident in your role as a mentor. So some examples could be learning to self-regulate and reassuring yourself that it's safe to be seen, and then taking baby steps towards promoting yourself and sharing your skills and sharing your ideas with other people. Learning to work with your fear by recognizing that it's your ego trying to keep you safe. And also by becoming more emotionally mature, by focusing on the vision and the impact you want to create in the world as bigger than your fear, and so on. So, last little piece, I think. Choosing what you're mentoring in and who you're mentoring. This is, oh no, not the last piece. We've got a little bit more. But this is a really fun part, and I want you to do this as a group activity. In the chat box, I want each and every one of you to answer the following questions. And while you do that, I'll share my own answers. So the first question is, what are you really passionate about? What lights you up? What brings joy and meaning and purpose to your life and the world for you? What is that? For me personally, while you put that in there, I'll share. For me personally, it's a crossover between giving people the tools to truly understand themselves, while also giving them the permission to live the fullest expression of their human life. And so for me, there's a crossover between spirituality, between psychology and self-awareness that comes in there, because I genuinely believe that the only, like, freedom is one of my highest values, and the only path to freedom is true self-responsibility. And imagine if every single person in the world took responsibility for all of themselves, how the world would change. And that's the world I want to live in. And so that's the work that I'm really into. And that's the area that I mentor in as well. And that has several different branches, but I'm going to read what you are going to share. What are you sharing? What you're sharing? Emily says, self-trust is a theme that comes up again and again for me. So, you know, you want to play with that. What does that mean? What does that look like? How can you teach self-trust? And honestly, self-trust is so needed in the world right now, because so many people outsource all their wisdom and all their knowledge and all their trust. So many people don't take action on what they truly already know inside themselves without Googling it first and getting external validation, which is wild, because actually Google is full of ads that we can't trust. So yeah, that's a good one, Emily. Self-trust is powerful and needed. I'm not sure I'm going to say this name right, because it says Cup Richard here. So hi. Helping others be better than they think they can be. So that sounds like confidence to me, like teaching people confidence in who they are and what they have to bring to life. And yeah, like when you don't have confidence, you don't think you have much to give. And when you are confident, you can bring so much more. That's beautiful. Cassie says, I'm constantly drawn back to being creative and creating things. Also, another really necessary and needed thing in the world. That's really beautiful. Anna, do you feel like sharing what your thing is? And so, like, each of you, as you share, this is probably the area that you want to mentor in. It's not about what's the smart choice, but it is on some level, but it's the what brings you alive choice. How can you pass on your aliveness to others? Because that's your gift. That's what you're here to share. That's what people need from you. Anna says, I want to help people share their magic with the world. That's beautiful. And so that's the way that I read that is that's bringing what's already within out into the world. It's like digging for gold inside a human and allowing them to, or teaching them, showing them the pathway to access that. Okay, great. Excuse me. Suddenly got a little tickle in my throat. Second part of this exercise that you will need to answer in the chat box is, who needs that? Who needs what you have to offer, that you're into, that you're passionate about, that you care about, that you find meaningful? Who needs that? I know it's a hard question, but I know you also can do this. I mean, if I were to answer the question, it's essentially everyone. Everyone needs this work, but I also recognize that I'm going to attract people who see themselves in me, and that works for everyone. We're always going to be attracted to and work with people who are in some way, on some level, of a reflection of ourselves, and that's what then creates sort of a niche, because I'm probably not going to attract a truck driver because we have very little in common, but someone else will. And, you know, imagine some big burly guy teaching another big burly guy about emotional intelligence and self-awareness and responsibility. And that will be an incredible, incredible thing. I probably won't get that client though, which is also very fine because I'm not sure I know how to speak to them. Anna says everyone as well. I'm going to say this wrong again, but tap Richard. Everyone, but I want to work with late teens, early 20s, as I have a daughter that age who has struggles. And I also want to work with the bereaved, as when you are in grief, when you are grief stricken, you lose the future you thought you had and you lose confidence. Wow. That's really powerful. And I love how precise you are and how you know exactly whom you want to speak to and work with. It's incredible. It's really, really beautiful. Thank you. And Emily says, myself 5 years ago. Yep. And that's something that happens quite often, is that as we go through life's lessons and the ringer, so to speak, and we garner lots of tools, we then know that the past version of ourselves would have really needed that, and that often becomes those people often become our clients. Cassie says, anyone that wants a creative outlet in their life. Yes, exactly. Wonderful. So you know who you're mentoring, you know what you're mentoring in, and you know who you're mentoring. And so finally, I'm going to hand it over to Anna to talk about how much you can get paid in the different areas of mentoring.
So when you think about how much you should be getting paid, the first thing that came to mind for me preparing this was thinking about boundaries. And there's a whole lesson within TMT about boundaries, because you have to be very honest about how much time you have, not just to host, like your one-to-one sessions or your group session, but what's your full resourcefulness? Like, how much extra support do you want to give your clients? Do you want to be accessible in between sessions, or is the work only within sessions? Are you going to send notes, like full detail notes after your calls to your clients, or is it their full responsibility to take notes? You have to think about all of these things, because that's part of your package as well. That's part of the time that you're putting in. And when you're setting your price, you have to have those firm boundaries and explain them to your clients so everybody knows where they stand. And then, of course, it's important to know, who you're going to be working with and who you're marketing yourself to. Is it to your organization, to the business that you're employed by? Or is it because in that case, what you're charging them, quote unquote, is your pay increase or a different job title. Like, that's how you're negotiating what we would call your rate, so it's going to take a different form if you're an employee. Are you going to work with a business as a contractor? Because you're going to charge a business more than you would charge an individual. And that's because within a business, like, you're going to be impacting many different people. And in the very general scheme of things, businesses have more money, so you can actually charge them more. And or are you going to be working directly with clients? Is it going to be in one-to-ones? Is it going to be in groups? What shape is it going to have? That also determines how much you should be getting paid. And one thing that we often don't think about, when it's actually pretty straightforward, is how much do you need to be making for this to be viable for you? Because if you want your sessions to be super accessible and you're selling your hour at £10 or £15, how many of those sessions are you going to need to do to be able to live from that, if that's the route that you're taking? And is that feasible? Like, say you need to be hosting something like 30 or 40 sessions a week. Is that, firstly, like, realistic? Are you going to be able to bring in that many clients? But also, and you have to be very honest with yourself, like, can you hold that many sessions in a week? So think about how much you need to be making, and that can then help you determine if you're only doing one-to-ones, if you're doing groups, if you're working with businesses. Like, it helps you figure out as well how you want your business to look. And when you're pricing yourself, what you're selling is the value that you're bringing to people. So listing the benefits that you bring to those that you work with, and what problem your mentoring is going to help them solve. So that's what you're going to be selling to them. You're not selling, 6 one-hour sessions. You're selling all those benefits, that value that you bring to them, and the problems that you help them solve. And then your package can look like 6 sessions, but that's what your underlying message is. And so with all of that is, you also have to think of really what it looks like. So I touched on, like, are you going to offer support in between sessions and things, but how long are your sessions? How often do you need to hold them? And how long do you want to be with a client for? Are you going to offer, is what you're mentoring in achievable in 6 sessions over 6 weeks, or 6 sessions over 12 weeks? Or
I want to jump in here just briefly, that mentoring, and this is one of the differentiations, and also we speak to that in our other free masterclass, is often a much longer term relationship than coaching. So most of my clients I have worked with for more than a year. Like 90% of my clients I've worked with for more than a year, many of them 2-3 years. And so this is another thing, like, how do you create a container that's both affordable and accessible, as well as supports you personally? And so, like, there's such a big range. So for example, in the UK, counselors and mostly counselors charge from about £50 to £100. Mentors charge from about £80 to £200. Coaches charge a lot more, but that's an industry that's quite different and not one we're going to speak to. But you can kind of figure out, based on those, what sits right with you, based on who your audience is, what you're mentoring in, and how accessible you want to be to those people. And there is no right or wrong answer. This is something that you have to figure out around, sorry, I have cat drama happening over there. You have to figure out what sits right and is an integrity for you, while also not underpricing yourself, because there's a tendency for people who are natural helpers to not value what they bring as highly as they should.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
No, that was great. Thank you. And so my next point was to figure out really what your offer is, the best way is to practice and to see how it feels. And that's why within the mentor training, to become accredited with it, you have to practice with clients. So you practice within yourselves, and then you practice with clients when you've gained a little bit more confidence, because that's going to allow you to really feel into, oh, well, the way I mentor, I want to see them every week, and I would like to be the one to send them notes with some extra thoughts and things to think about. Or actually, I like to have space in between my sessions so they can have things to move and we've got more to work with when they come in. So I'd like to see them every 2 weeks. Maybe you need an hour and a half, maybe you need just an hour. Like, the more you practice, that's how you know. And as you grow as a mentor, so does the value that you bring. So maybe after 2 years or a certain time, your offer changes, your price changes, because your skill set grows as well. Like, in your field, you're more experienced as a mentor, you've gained more life experience, and that's what you bring in mentoring too. So it's important to allow yourself to be a beginner and to let things also change and go. It's not because you've offered something for 2 years that it can't change as you go.
Thank you. Actually, if it's okay with you, Anna, I'd love to talk about the mentor training a little bit, just to wrap things up and how it works. So it's an 8-month program that is live and accompanied with online video classes. There's about 5 video classes per month in the first sort of section. And so I'm going to run you through how it works. So the first 2 months, which are April and May, are video classes bi-monthly, every 2 weeks, fortnightly, every 2 weeks, a live call. And we've got 2 different time zones to kind of cover everyone. So everyone in Northern Hemisphere, everyone in the Southern Hemisphere, and you just choose one of the time zones that suits you. So every 2 weeks, we have a live call where we come together as a group. You also are put into listening partnerships. So they're dyads where you have a partner that you're partnered with, and you meet them every week and practice active listening with each other for 10 minutes each. So it's 20 minutes in total. And I always try and match people up based on location and personality and what I know of them, so that it's a good match. Last year, that was one of the most enriching parts for everyone. Just have someone there every week holding space for them, practicing what they're learning as they're going along. So after 2 months of just online lessons and live calls, we have 1 month off online lessons and live calls. And this is where you get 2 things. One is you start practicing what you've learned so far within your peer group. So we will match you with peers within the program, and you will exchange mentoring sessions with each other. Plus, you'll get a mentoring session with me, so a 1-to-1. Then we have 2 more months back to school. So like back to online classes and a live call and a live class every 2 weeks, again with 2 different time zones to cover everyone. Then again, we have another month break, but in this one, you will be taught to reach out and actually bring practice clients on board and practice with them, because by then you'll have learned all the tools and all the skills of the mentor training through the online video classes and the live classes. So you can start putting everything into practice, and you will be taught, you'll be guided how to approach people and invite them to work with you. So you get those practice sessions done. At the same time, you also get one-on-one mentoring with me. And then we have the final 2 months, which are integration months. And it's really quite unique because most trainings and most courses don't have that time where you can really just feel supported as you integrate the training. And in that time, it's just live calls. So every 2 weeks, so you'll have 4 live calls across the 2 months where you can bring everything that's coming up for you, everything that you're navigating, everything that you're learning and putting into practice as it's happening. So we really encourage you to start mentoring already in whatever field, that in whatever format that works for you by that time, and actually have us be there and support you while you're already stepping into the role. So it doesn't feel like there's this big leap between finishing the training and then having to start this thing on your own. You actually get us there with you along the way. I know that there's a bit of a barrier around spending too much time online. I definitely have one because, hey, I am a human being. I don't want to spend all of my life online. But I think that hours are very doable. It's probably about, including the live calls, the listening partnerships, and the online classes, probably about 8 to 10 hours. I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. I think it's about 8 to 10 hours a month. Is that right? Yes, thank you. I don't know. I just had like a mind blank there for a moment. And, you know, that includes 22 pre-recorded video lessons across 4 months, 20 practice hours, 16 fortnightly live classes, and the weekly listening partnership calls. And I feel like that's everything I've got. Do you want to add anything to that, Anna?
No, I think that's everything. I think we've covered it all.
Yeah. Do you have any questions before we go tonight?
You can unmute yourself and just come on and share if you've got a question. That may be easier.
Yes. I've been thinking about being a mentor or a coach for a long time. I spent 2.5 hours on a call yesterday with what were they called? Anyway, the coaching people, and I know I definitely don't want to coach. It was the Academy of Executive Coaching. So I know that I want to mentor, and there aren't many mentoring courses, though this is one of just a very small number of mentoring courses. What I didn't yet know about mentoring was about mentoring individually or as groups. And you've talked a couple of times, particularly about mentoring groups, perhaps in a corporate environment, maybe more than in a one-on-one individual client. You might not bring on individuals to somehow do a group one, but you might if there was a connection to what they needed help with. But I imagine it more to be, if you did group work, it would be mainly corporate based. Am I imagining that wrong?
For me personally, most of my mentoring happens in groups.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
I find a specific topic that I know is particularly necessary because what happened originally, I only worked one-on-one. So I only had private clients. But what I noticed working with private clients for years and years was that there were certain topics that were being repeated over and over and over and over again across all these people. And so what I would do is I'd create group mentoring programs that would address those topics specifically so people could work through them together. And there's actually such a magic when people feel connected and seen and heard as a group rather than when it's just one-on-one, because they're like, oh my God, it's not just me going through this thing, like all these other people going through it together. And that feeds our need for community, it feeds our need for connection, it feeds our need for being seen and heard and validated as we process the challenges of life. So no, I actually think, at least in my perspective and in my vision for the world, that group mentoring is the way forward in the future, because there are limitations in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of all sorts of things when it's just one-on-one.
Yeah, well, it saves money. I mean, I've been having some mentoring, but my daughter, who hasn't been very well, I've been paying for her to have counselling or psychotherapy for 1.5 years. It's very, very expensive at £70 a session every week. So when you were saying people have been with you for a year or more, I don't know how easy it is to find clients who can afford to do that. I tend to dip in and out when I need help. I do maybe 15 weeks and then stop, and I let another layer of the onion come off and do another batch a year or so later.
I do the same.
So yeah, it's interesting to think. And also I've done lots of group work. I was a trainer for the expert patient program, which meant that because I was a sick person, I've had long-term illness, I was the person who was brought on by the NHS. There was a trainer who was an NHS worker, but there was also a patient who had self-managed very well. So I self-managed my ME or chronic fatigue. And yes, what was so powerful was going to those groups with lots of people, because I went to it and I suddenly realized that although I had a lot of pain, there were people far worse off than me. And I guess it works a bit also like, I don't do AA meetings, but you know, those kind of group meetings where you share.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is interesting that you can run groups long term. Okay. So I know that I want to mentor. I just don't know if I've got the time to start this year with some other commitments. I often have to book a year ahead. So I don't know how often. I can see you're doing a program for 8 months. Will there be another one the following year?
I hope so. Let's see how this one runs.
And finally, if I did want to try and get into the corporate environment, it's interesting that you are going for some form of accreditation. I think that will help, because if you're up against coaches, all of these groups like the AOEC, if you do their course, you get affiliated to 3 different groups: a European coaching group, an American one, and a global one. And that's quite helpful. So if you're trying to work in the corporate environment, it might help to have that. So those were my observations from today.
Yeah, thank you. You're right. And thank you for sharing and for asking such a great question. I really love that one. Did you want to add anything, Anna, or shall we wrap it up for tonight?
I think we're good. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this time with us. We'll be sending you some emails with further information in the coming days, and look forward to seeing you around, however that unfolds. Okay, I will just try and work out what the commitment level is to see whether or not I can squeeze it in this year. I'll have another look through all of the list that you've been through and just think, what can I do or not? Great. And if anything comes up, you feel free to reply to the emails and I'll get back to you. Mm-hmm.
And on the website, there's the exact dates when all the calls are hosted and the time, so you can really see specifically when they are. Yeah, I can see Cassie had the same question as me. Yes. Yeah, because it's already March. Finding the money and the time to start something in the next couple of weeks is quite a big decision. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, I find that I sometimes just have to leap. Yeah. Understand. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.